Velthara stood on the crystal platform high above her world and watched the last transport ship disappear into the dark sky. The ship carried 300 children from her city. She would never see them again. Her forearms trembled as she touched the smooth surface of the observation deck. Everything felt cold now, even though the twin sun still shone down on the floating city. The Kythera had built their civilization over 3,000 years. They lived on platforms that floated above the gas clouds of 7 different worlds. Their cities were made of living crystal that grew and changed colors with their emotions. When the Kythera were happy, the crystals glowed soft blue and green. When they sang together, the whole city would shine like a rainbow. But today, the Yuainband crystals were dark gray. Fear had turned them the color of ash. Velthara was the high coordinator of her people. She had held this position for 60 years, guiding her species through times of growth and discovery. The Kythera had never known, or they settled problems by talking. They shared resources freely between worlds. Their greatest achievement was the harmony network that connected all their cities with music and light. 3 months ago, everything changed. The first sign was the silence. The city of Melandra on the 4th world stopped singing. Their harmony signal just cut out during the morning meditation. Velthara sent message crystals asking what was wrong. No answer came back. Then the refugees arrived. The survivors from Melandra came in small ships that were damaged and smoking. They brought stories that made no sense to the peaceful Kythera. They spoke of ships that looked like giant insects, made of metal and flesh. They described creatures that moved as one mind and consumed everything in their path. They came from nowhere, said Kylithan, a crystal singer who had escaped the attack. His body was cracked in 3 places and his glow was very dim. Our defense grid tried to stop them, but their weapons went right through our shields. They landed on the platform and started eating the crystal foundations. Eating them? Velthara had asked. Not like food. They absorbed them, turned them into part of their ships. And the people. Kylithan could not finish speaking. His light faded completely. Within days, more refugees came from other worlds. Each story was the same. Ships appeared without warning. The Kythera defenses, designed to deflect space debris and minor impacts, could not stop weapons meant to destroy entire civilizations. The attackers moved with perfect coordination. They stripped each world of resources and took the survivors. Velthara learned that these creatures called themselves the Skarn Dominion. They were not individuals like the Kythera. Instead, they shared one giant mind across millions of bodies. They had conquered dozens of star systems, always moving outward, always consuming more. The Kythera tried to fight back. Their harmony crystals could create shields of pure energy. Their singers could focus sound waves to shatter rock and metal. But the Skarn had faced hundreds of other species before. They adapted quickly to each new defense. On the 2nd world, the Kythera built a massive crystal array that could sing a note so pure it would disable any machine. The Skarn landed and let the weapon hit their ships. Then they copied the frequency and used it to shatter every crystal city on the planet. On the 6th world, the Kythera tried hiding in the gas clouds. The Skarn released living probes that could track crystal signatures through any environment. They found every hiding place in 2 days. Each victory taught the Skarn something new. Each defeat cost the Kythera thousands of lives and entire worlds. Now Velthara stood on the last free world in her system. Around her, the great crystal spires of her home city reached toward the sky. Below, in the streets and gardens, her people moved with the slow grace of those who knew their time was ending. Children no longer played in the singing fountains. Adults worked quietly to prepare the final evacuation ships. The Harmony Network still connected this city to 12 others on the same world, but it was a smaller song now, filled with sorrow instead of joy. Every day, one more city went silent as its people fled to the outer systems. Velthara touched the communication crystal on her wrist. She could reach out to any Kythera in the galaxy, but there were so few left now. Most were scattered across empty space in refugee ships, looking for worlds where they might hide from the Skarn advance. She opened a connection to the orbital defense platform above her city. Commander Pillaven appeared in the crystal. his 4 eyes tired and his natural glow very weak. "Any word from the outer patrol ships?" she asked. "3 more ships reported Scarn scouts in the system edge," he replied. "The main fleet will be here in less than 10 days. Our evacuation ships can carry maybe half the remaining population." Velthara closed her eyes. Half the population. 2 million beings would have to stay behind because there was nowhere for them to run. The other free worlds in the galaxy had their own problems. Some had already fallen to the Scarn. Others had closed their borders and would not accept refugees. "What about the deep space beacon?" she asked. Pylaven's glow flickered with uncertainty. "The ancient relay system still works. We could send a message to every known civilization in the galaxy. But High Coordinator, no one has answered any distress call in 300 years. The galaxy has grown cold and careful. Each species protects only itself." "But someone might listen," Velthara said. "Someone might care that an entire civilization is about to die." "Even if they cared, what could they do? The Scarn have conquered worlds with populations in the billions. They have fleets that stretch across star systems. What could 1 or 2 species do against such power?" Velthara looked out at her city one more time. In the distance, she could see the children's quarter where young Kithara learned to sing, their first harmonies. Most of it was empty now. The crystal nurseries where new life began stood silent and dark. "Maybe nothing," she said quietly. "But I have to try. If we are going to die, then let the galaxy know what happened here. Let them know that we existed. Let them know that we tried to build something beautiful." She walked to the center of the observation platform where the great beacon crystal waited. It was older than her civilization, built by the first Kithara explorers who had mapped this region of space. Its faceted surface could focus signals across thousands of light years. Velthara placed all 4 hands on the crystal and felt its ancient power wake up. The beacon connected to relay stations throughout the galaxy, using a network that was older than most current civilizations. She began to compose her message, speaking in 17 different languages that the network had recorded over the centuries. Her words went out to species she had never met, to worlds she could not imagine. "This is High Coordinator Velthara of the Kithara Federation, sending on all frequencies from the Andromeda Rim sector. Our civilization is dying. For 3 months, the Scarn Dominion has destroyed our worlds one by one. They consume everything they touch. They turn our people into fuel for their endless war machine." Her voice broke slightly, but she continued, "We are not warriors. We have never learned to hate or to kill. Our weapons are songs and our shields are harmony. Against the Scarn, these things are not enough." The crystal grew brighter as her message reached deeper into space. 47 of our worlds have fallen silent. Millions of our people are gone. In 10 days, our last world will face the final attack. We have evacuation ships for half our population. The rest will die here, in the cities where their ancestors sang for generations. Tears of liquid crystal ran down Velthara's face, each drop glowing with her inner light. "We are not asking you to die for us. We understand that every species must survive as best they can in this dark galaxy. But if anyone out there has the power to stand against this evil, if anyone still believes that beauty and peace are worth defending, then please help us. We offer everything we have, everything we are, to anyone who will stand with us against the darkness." She lifted her hands from the beacon and watched her message race away into the void, carrying the last hope of her people to distant stars. Now all she could do was wait and pray that somewhere in the cold galaxy, someone would care enough to answer. Captain Jake Morrison was drinking his 3rd cup of coffee when the message came through. He sat in the communications center of Luna Station, watching the night shift monitor deep space frequencies. The coffee was terrible, but it kept him awake. During the long hours when nothing important happened, then everything changed. "Captain, you need to hear this," said Communications Officer Lisa Park. She was young for her rank, only 26, but she could decode alien languages faster than anyone else in the Terran Deep Space Command. Her fingers moved quickly over her control panel as she cleaned up the signal. "What kind of message?" Jake asked. He was 42 years old and had been fighting in space for 20 years. The Proxima border wars had taught him that most alien contacts ended badly. "It's a distress call, sir. Coming in on 17 different frequencies. The translation software is having trouble with some of the languages, but the basic meaning is clear. Someone is asking for help." Jake set down his coffee cup and walked over to Lisa's station. On her screen, he could see wave patterns and frequency charts. The message was complex, layered with different languages and communication methods. "Play it," he said. The voice that came through the speakers was unlike anything Jake had ever heard. It sounded like music mixed with words, rising and falling in patterns that made him think of wind chimes in a gentle breeze. But underneath the beauty, he could hear deep sadness and fear. Lisa had programmed the computer to translate the message into English. As the alien voice spoke, text appeared on the screen. Jake read about the Cathera Federation, about worlds destroyed and people consumed by something called the Scarn Dominion. "How long ago was this sent?" Jake asked. "The timestamp shows it was broadcast 6 days ago. It took this long to reach us through the relay network. Captain, this message was sent to everyone. Every known civilization in the galaxy received this same call for help. Any responses?" Lisa checked her instruments. "None that I can detect, sir. We might be the only ones listening." Jake stared at the screen as the message finished playing. The alien voice, this Velthera, was asking for help against an enemy that had already destroyed dozens of worlds. Her people were going to die in just a few days. "Send this up the chain immediately," Jake ordered. "Full priority transmission to Earth Command. And Lisa, keep monitoring for any follow-up messages from that sector." "Yes, sir." "Captain, should I respond to let them know we received their message?" Jake thought about it for a moment. Earth had strict policies about first contact situations. Any response to alien communications had to be approved by the highest levels of government. Not yet. Let's see what Earth Command says first. 3 hours later, Jake received orders to report to Admiral Patricia Cole's office immediately. He took a shuttle from Luna Station to Earth Command headquarters in Geneva. The building was busy even at this early hour, with officers and civilians rushing through the hallways. Admiral Cole was waiting for him in her office along with 2 other people Jake had never met. The Admiral was in her 50s with gray hair and sharp eyes that missed nothing. She had commanded the Third Fleet during the worst fighting of the Proxima Wars. "Captain Morrison, meet Dr. Helen Carter from the Xenobiology Department, and Commander Alex Reed from Tactical Planning. We've been discussing your communications report." Jake saluted and took the seat the Admiral offered him. "What's the decision, ma'am?" "The United Earth Council has been in emergency session for the last 2 hours, Admiral Cole said. "We've never received a genuine distress call from an alien civilization before. Usually, first contact involves either trade negotiations or someone trying to conquer us." Dr. Carter leaned forward. "Captain, we've analyzed the linguistic patterns in this message. The mathematical structures and cultural references suggest a genuinely peaceful civilization. These aren't warriors trying to trick us into some kind of trap." "And the enemy they're facing?" Jake asked. Commander Reed opened a data pad and showed Jake several charts. "Based on the description in the message, the Scarn Dominion appears to be what we classify as a conquering collective. They expand constantly, consuming resources and populations. They've hit at least 50 star systems in the last decade. Sounds like a problem that will eventually reach us," Jake said. "Exactly," Admiral Cole replied. "The Council's decision is that we respond to this distress call, not just because it's the right thing to do, but because we need allies out there. Earth is surrounded by hostile or indifferent species. If we can save the Cathera, we might gain our first real friends in the galaxy." Jake nodded. It made sense from both a moral and strategic viewpoint. "What are my orders?" "You'll command the response mission. The 3rd Expeditionary Fleet is being prepared for immediate departure. 37 ships, including the Dreadnought. UES Retribution. Your flagship will be the UES Defiance." Jake felt his pulse quicken. The Defiance was one of the newest ships in the Earth Fleet, equipped with the latest weapons and defense systems, but 37 ships against an enemy that had conquered dozens of worlds seemed like very little. Admiral, with respect, is that enough firepower? These Skarn have been winning battles across multiple star systems. Commander Reed smiled grimly. Captain, you'll be facing an enemy that has never encountered humans before. They've conquered peaceful civilizations and species that think war is a last resort. They've never faced a species that evolved on a death world. Dr. Carter explained further. Captain, most intelligent life in the galaxy develops on worlds with stable climates and relatively safe environments. Earth is unusual. Our planet has ice ages, massive volcanic eruptions, asteroid impacts, and predators that actively hunt thinking beings. Humans evolved to survive in conditions that would kill most alien species. The Skarn are used to fighting enemies who follow predictable patterns, Commander Reed added. Species that value their own lives over victory. Species that retreat when the odds are bad. They've never faced humans who will charge into certain death if it means protecting innocent people. Admiral Cole stood up and walked to the large window that looked out over Lake Geneva. Captain, we estimate you have about 4 days to reach the Kythera system before the final Skarn attack. Your mission is to assess the situation and provide whatever assistance you can. Save as many Kythera as possible. And if we can't save them all, then at least we'll have tried, and we'll have learned something about this Skarn enemy before they start moving toward human space. Jake left the meeting with his orders and a head full of questions. He had 4 hours to prepare for a mission that would take him farther from Earth than any human had ever traveled. He was going to make first contact with an alien species while fighting another alien species that sounded like something from humanity's worst nightmares. His first stop was the Officer Preparation Center, where he met with the other ship commanders who would be part of the expedition. Captain Nina Cross from the destroyer UES Valkyrie was there, along with Captain Bill Murphy from the cruiser UES Thunder, and 12 other experienced officers. Anyone else think this sounds like a suicide mission? Asked Captain Cross. She was a short woman with red hair and a reputation for aggressive tactics. Maybe, Jake replied. But think about it this way. If we don't go, an entire civilization dies. If we do go, we might save them and learn something that helps us survive when the Skarn eventually find Earth. Captain Murphy nodded. Besides, this is what we trained for. The Proxima Wars taught us how to fight enemies with better technology. Speed, aggression, and unpredictability usually beat bigger guns. Jake spent the next 2 hours reviewing tactical data with Commander Reed. They studied everything they knew about Skarn ships and weapons, which wasn't much. Most of their information came from the Kythera message and scattered reports from other civilizations. The key thing to remember, Commander Reed explained, is that collective consciousness species think differently than we do. They're used to perfect coordination and logical decision-making. They don't expect enemies to do stupid, brave things just because it's the right thing to do. So our plan is to be stupid and brave. Our plan is to be human. And sometimes being human means doing things that look impossible to everyone else. Jake's final stop was the communications center, where Lisa Park was preparing to join the expedition. She would be his chief communications officer aboard the Defiance. Any more messages from the Kythera? He asked. 2 more, sir. Both shorter than the first one. The situation is getting worse. They estimate the Skarn main fleet will reach their last world in 3.5 days. Jake looked at the star charts showing the route to Kythera space. Even at maximum speed, it would take them almost 4 days to get there. We're going to be cutting it very close, he said. Captain, do you think we can really help them? Jake thought about all the briefings he had received, all the warnings about the dangers they would face. Then he thought about the voice in that alien message, the sadness and desperate hope of someone watching her entire civilization die. Lisa, I honestly don't know if we can save them, but I know we have to try, because that's what humans do. When someone calls for help, we answer, even if the odds are terrible, even if we might not make it back home. The human fleet dropped out of hyperspace at the edge of the Kythera system and found a graveyard. Captain Jake Morrison stood on the bridge of the UES Defiance and stared at the main screen in horror. Where the star charts showed populated worlds, he saw only broken rocks floating in space. 3 planets had been completely shattered, their pieces spread across millions of miles of empty void. My God, whispered Communications Officer Lisa Park. What could do this to entire worlds? Lieutenant Commander Ben Carter, the ship's tactical officer, was running scans on the debris fields. His face was pale as he read the results. Captain, these planets weren't destroyed by weapons, they were taken apart piece by piece. Someone stripped away the crust, the mantle, everything down to the core. Jake watched the scanner displays as they showed the remains of what had once been a thriving civilization. Floating among the planetary debris were the twisted remains of crystal cities, their beautiful structures now dark and broken. Any life signs? Jake asked. Picking up some weak signals from the inner system, replied Ensign Kate Brooks from the sensor station. There's still one intact planet, and I'm detecting several small ships in orbit around it. Set course for Deu, the inner system. All ships maintain battle formation but hold fire unless fired upon. As the human fleet moved deeper into the Kythera system, the destruction became more clear. The third planet had been completely hollowed out, leaving only a thin shell of rock that was slowly collapsing in on itself. The second planet was missing its entire northern hemisphere, but it was the space around these dead worlds that truly shocked the humans. Floating in the void were structures that looked like enormous metallic insects. Each one was the size of a city, with multiple legs that ended in drilling and cutting devices. They moved slowly through the debris fields, collecting pieces of matter and feeding them into massive processing chambers in their bellies. Scarran harvester ships, Carter reported. They're still here, still working. Captain, those things are breaking down the planetary remains and converting them into raw materials. Jake felt sick as he realized what he was looking at. The Scarran weren't just conquerors, they were consumers who literally ate entire worlds, turning planets and people into fuel for their war machine. Captain, incoming transmission, Lisa announced. It's coming from the surviving planet. The signal is very weak. Put it through. The voice that came over the speakers was the same musical tone they had heard in the original distress message. But now, it was filled with exhaustion and despair. Unknown ships. This is High Coordinator Velthara of the Kythera Federation. If you are here to help, you are too late. If you are here to join the Scarran, then finish us quickly. We have no strength left to fight. Jake gestured for Lisa to open a channel. High Coordinator Velthara, this is Captain Jake Morrison of the United Earth Expeditionary Fleet. We received your message and came as fast as we could. We're here to help. There was a long silence. Then Velthara's voice returned, but now it sounded different. There was something like hope mixed with disbelief. Earth? We have never heard of your world. You came all this way to help strangers? Yes, ma'am, that's what humans do. Can you guide us to your location? 20 minutes later, Jake sat in a shuttle heading toward the last Kythera world. With him were Dr. Maria Santos, the fleet's xenobiologist, and a small diplomatic team. The planet, below them, was beautiful, covered in floating crystal cities that glowed with soft light. But Jake could see that many of the cities were dark and empty. The shuttle docked with a Kythera command vessel that orbited high above the planet. As Jake stepped through the airlock, he got his first look at an alien being. Velthara was unlike anything he had imagined. She stood about 6 feet tall and had 4 arms that moved with graceful precision. Her body was made of what looked like living crystal that glowed with a soft blue light. Her face had 4 large eyes that seemed to hold great intelligence and deep sadness. Captain Morrison, she said through a translation device on her chest, I cannot believe you are real. In all our models of galactic civilization, we never predicted this. A young species from so far away choosing to help people they have never met. Jake stepped forward and offered his hand. Velthara looked confused. For a moment, then carefully touched his hand with one of her 4-fingered appendages. We came because you asked for help, Jake said simply. How bad is the situation? Velthara led them through her ship to a large chamber filled with crystal displays. The walls showed images of the Scarran attack, recorded during the battles for the other worlds. Jake watched in horror as massive bioships descended on crystal cities, their organic weapons tearing through defensive shields like they were made of paper. The Scarran main fleet arrives in 18 hours, Velthara explained. We have evacuation ships for perhaps half of our remaining population. 2 million beings will have to stay behind. Dr. Santos was examining the tactical displays with professional interest. High Coordinator, your defensive weapons appear to be based on harmonic frequencies and energy manipulation. Have you tried conventional kinetic weapons? Kinetic weapons? Velthara looked confused. You mean throwing rocks? More advanced than rocks, but the basic principle is the same. Bullets, missiles, projectiles that cause damage through physical impact. We abandoned such primitive methods thousands of years ago when we developed harmonic technology. Why would anyone want to hurt others with flying metal? Jake and Dr. Santos exchanged glances. The Kithara were so peaceful that they had never developed the weapons of war that humans took for granted. They had tried to fight the Skarn with tools designed for construction and art, not destruction. High Coordinator, Jake said carefully. Has anyone else responded to your distress call? You are the first. We sent the message to over 200 known civilizations. Most never replied. A few sent messages saying they were sorry but could not help. The Galactic Council sent an official statement of sympathy and a suggestion that we negotiate with the Skarn. Negotiate with them? For what? The terms of our absorption into their collective. They suggested we could preserve some of our culture if we surrendered peacefully. Jake felt anger rising in his chest. 200 civilizations had received the Kithara's desperate plea for help, and all of them had chosen to do nothing. They were willing to let an entire peaceful species be destroyed rather than risk their own safety. Well, you're not alone anymore, Jake said firmly. We're going to help you. Velthara's glow brightened slightly. Captain, I appreciate your courage, but you have 37 ships. The Skarn are bringing over 300 vessels, including bioships the size of moons. Your people will die trying to help us. Maybe, but that's our choice to make. Dr. Santos had been studying the Skarn attack patterns on the tactical displays. Captain, I'm seeing something interesting here. The Skarn seem to follow very predictable strategies. They always attack in the same formations, always target the same types of installations first. Makes sense if they're a collective consciousness, Jake replied. They probably have optimal strategies programmed into their shared mind, which means they might not adapt well to tactics they've never seen before. Lieutenant Commander Carter's voice came through Jake's communicator. Captain, we're picking up movement at the edge of the system. Skarn scout ships, 6 vessels, heading this way. Jake looked at Velthara. High Coordinator, I think we're about to get our first look at your enemy. They returned to the shuttle and flew back to the Defiance. As Jake took his position on the bridge, he could see the Skarn ships on the main screen. They looked exactly like the descriptions from the Kithara message. Enormous metallic insects with multiple limbs and organic surfaces that pulsed with sickly light. All ships, this is Captain Morrison. We are about to engage an unknown enemy to protect a peaceful civilization. Remember your training and remember why we're here. Show these Skarn what happens when they threaten innocent people. The 6 Skarn bioships moved toward the human fleet in perfect formation. Their approach was slow and methodical, as if they were analyzing these new ships that had appeared in their territory. Captain, Carter reported, the Skarn ships are scanning us. I don't think they know what to make of our technology. Good. Let's keep them guessing. All ships weapons free. Target the lead vessel. The first battle between humans and Skarn began with the thunder of human railguns firing across the void. The lead bioship staggered as kinetic projectiles punched through its organic armor. The Skarn had never faced weapons that worked through simple physics rather than exotic energy fields. The alien ship fired back with living projectiles that squirmed through space toward the human vessels. But Captain Nina Cross of the destroyer UES Valkyrie was already moving, diving her ship into a debris field at speeds that should have been impossible. Her crew, trained in the crushing depths of Earth's oceans, handled the brutal acceleration without complaint. The human ship swarmed around the larger Skarn vessels like wolves attacking a bear. They used speed and aggression to overcome the enemy's size advantage, firing missiles and bullets at close range before dancing away from return fire. The Skarn main fleet arrived like a plague of metal locusts. Captain Jake Morrison watched from the bridge of the UES Defiance as over 300 alien ships dropped out of hyperspace at the edge of the system. The bioships were enormous, some as large as Earth's moon, their organic surfaces pulsing with veins of sickly green light. They moved in perfect formation, a wall of living metal that stretched across thousands of miles of space. "Sweet Mother of God," whispered Lieutenant Commander Ben Carter. "Captain, the largest of those ships is reading as 12 miles long. Our biggest dreadnought would fit inside its cargo bay." Jake felt ice in his stomach as he looked at the tactical display. 37 human ships against 300 Skarn vessels. The numbers were impossible, but he had made a promise to help the Cathera. Sometimes keeping a promise meant doing something that looked impossible. "All ships. This is Captain Morrison. I know what you're all thinking. Those are big ships and there are a lot of them. But remember what we learned from the scout engagement. The Skarn think in patterns. They follow the same tactics that worked against everyone else they've conquered. They've never faced humans before." Jake paused and looked around his bridge, at the young men and women who had volunteered to travel across the galaxy to help strangers. "The Skarn expect us to run or surrender when we see how big their fleet is. They expect us to think like every other species they've faced. But we're not like other species. We're from Earth. We're Deathworlders, and we're going to show them what that means." On the planet below, Velthera stood in the crystal command center of her last city and watched the human fleet take position between her world and the approaching enemy. She could not understand why these aliens would choose to die for people they had just met. In all her studies of galactic civilization, she had never seen such behavior. "High Coordinator," said her aide, "the evacuation ships are ready to depart. We can save 800,000 people if we leave now." Velthara looked at the display showing the human ships. They looked so small compared to the Skarn fleet. "No. If these humans are willing to fight for us, then we will not abandon them. Send the evacuation ships to the outer system, but keep them ready to return. Perhaps there is still hope." In space, the Skarn fleet had finished its deployment and was beginning to advance. The bioships moved slowly, their massive forms cutting through the void like predators approaching wounded prey. They had done this same maneuver hundreds of times before against dozens of species. Jake opened a channel to all ships in his fleet. "Here's the plan. We're going to do something the Skarn won't expect. Instead of forming a defensive line, we're going into the asteroid belt. We're going to use the debris field like a three-dimensional jungle. Captain Cross, take your destroyer squadron and set up ambush positions in Sector 7. Captain Murphy, position your cruisers for hit and run. Attacks from Sector 12. The human ships scattered into the vast asteroid field that surrounded the inner system. The belt was filled with broken pieces of the worlds the Skarn had destroyed, creating a maze of floating rocks and metal debris. Commander Alex Reed had planned this battle using tactics from Earth's bloodiest wars. The asteroids would hide the human ships until the last moment. The debris would break up the Skarn formations and force them to fight in small groups instead of as one massive fleet. The first Skarn ships entered the asteroid field and immediately ran into problems. Their massive bioships were designed for open space combat, not for navigating through narrow passages between floating rocks. They had to break formation and spread out, exactly what the humans wanted. Captain Nina Cross waited behind a house-sized asteroid until a Skarn cruiser passed within 1,000 yards of her position. Then the UES Valkyrie burst from hiding like a shark attacking from below. Her ship's railguns fired at point-blank range, punching holes completely through the alien vessel's organic armor. The Skarn ship tried to turn and return fire, but Cross was already gone, diving back into the asteroid field before the enemy could lock onto her position. The alien vessel died slowly, its biosystems failing as green fluid leaked from dozens of holes in its hull. All across the asteroid belt, human ships struck and vanished like ghosts. The Skarn collective consciousness had never faced this kind of fighting. They were used to organized battles where two fleets faced each other in open space. They had no experience with guerrilla warfare. The turning point came when Sergeant Major Carlos Rodriguez led the first boarding action against a damaged Skarn bioship. His squad of 20 Terran Marines used breaching pods to cut through the alien vessel's organic hull and fight their way into its living corridors. The inside of the Skarn ship was like a nightmare. The walls pulsed with veins and arteries. The floors were covered with a slippery membrane that tried to digest anything that walked on it. Strange organs hung from the ceiling, watching the intruders with dozens of eyes. But the Marines had trained for urban warfare in the ruins of bombed cities. They knew how to fight in tight spaces against enemies that wanted to kill them up close. Their power armor protected them from the ship's acidic atmosphere, and their weapons were designed to work in any environment. The Skarn drones that tried to stop them were bred for efficiency and collective coordination. Each drone followed the commands of the shared consciousness without question or individual thought. They attacked in predictable waves, using tactics that had worked against other species. But humans didn't fight like other species. Each Marine was trained to think independently and adapt to changing situations. They worked as a team, but each soldier could also fight alone if necessary. When Corporal Danny White's squad got separated from the main group, they didn't wait for orders. They set explosives in the ship's bioreactor and fought their way out through a different route. Rodriguez himself led the assault on the ship's nerve center, where the local collective consciousness controlled the vessel's functions. The chamber was filled with organic computers that looked like giant brains floating in green fluid. Skarn drones tried to stop the humans, but the Marines had faced worse odds in the underground tunnels of Proxima Station. When Rodriguez planted thermite charges on the nerve center and triggered the detonation, the entire bioship convulsed like a dying animal. The collective consciousness link was severed, and the ship began to break apart as its living systems failed. The Marines escaped in their boarding pods just before the vessel exploded in a burst of green fire. As they flew back to their mothership, Rodriguez could see similar explosions throughout the asteroid field. Human boarding teams were striking at the heart of the Skarn fleet, one bioship at a time, but the Skarn were learning and adapting. The collective consciousness began to modify its tactics, sending smaller ships ahead to clear the asteroids and force the human vessels into open space combat. Jake realized the enemy was adjusting faster than he had hoped. All ships, fall back to the inner system. Form up around the Kythera homeworld. We're going to make our stand there. As the human fleet regrouped near the last Kythera planet, Jake could see that they had hurt the enemy badly. Nearly 100 Skarn ships had been destroyed or disabled in the asteroid battle, but the cost was becoming clear. 8 human ships had been lost and many others were badly damaged. The Skarn fleet that emerged from the asteroid field was smaller but more cautious. They had learned to respect human tactics, but they still outnumbered the surviving human ships by more than 5 to 1. The final phase of the battle began when the largest Skarn bioship, a massive creature the size of a small moon, moved toward the Kythera homeworld. Its purpose was clear: to land on the planet and begin consuming the population and resources. Jake made a decision that his tactical officers thought was insane. All ships concentrate fire on the command ship. We're going to ram that thing. Captain, Carter protested. That ship is too big. Even our dreadnought can't do significant damage to something that size. We're not trying to destroy it, Jake replied. We're trying to make it angry. We're going to make it focus on us instead of the planet. The human fleet charged directly at the massive bioship, firing everything they had at its forward sections. Nuclear missiles exploded against its organic armor. Railgun rounds punched deep holes in its surface, and laser batteries burned through its defensive membranes. The giant ship responded exactly as Jake had hoped. It turned away from the planet and focused all its weapons on the attacking human fleet. Massive biocannons fired living projectiles that could eat through steel. Acidic clouds spread through space, trying to dissolve the human ships. But while the monster fought the human fleet, it couldn't attack the Kythera world. And in the confusion of the battle, no one noticed the small stealth shuttles that launched from the planet's surface. Velthera was leading a group of volunteer Kythera warriors in a desperate mission. They had studied the human boarding tactics and decided to try something their people had never done before: fight back with violence instead of harmony. The Kythera shuttles attached themselves to the giant bioship's hull and began cutting their way inside. The crystalline beings moved through the ship's corridors with determination. 6 months after the battle, Velthara stood in the rebuilt sacred observatory and watched human ships patrol the space around her world. The crystal spires of her city gleamed in the light of the twin suns, but now they carried new colors she had never seen before. The crystals had learned to glow with the deep red of determination and the bright silver of courage. Captain Jake Morrison walked up beside her, his uniform showing the scars of many battles. In the months since the first fight with the Skarn, he had become more than just an ally to the Cathara. He had become a friend and teacher to a species learning how to defend itself. "The patrol reports are good today," Jake said, looking at the data pad in his hands. "No Skarn ships detected in this sector for 3 weeks. I think they're finally getting the message." Velthara's 4 eyes turned toward him. Her crystal body now bore several small scars from the battles she had fought alongside human marines. She wore them with pride, marks of a leader who had learned to fight for her people instead of just speaking for them. "Your people have taught us much, Captain Morrison. We have learned that sometimes peace must be defended with strength, but we have also taught your people something in return." Jake smiled. "That's true. Your harmonic technology combined with our weapon systems has created things neither of us could build alone. The new defense platforms around your world are stronger than anything humanity has ever made." In the months after the Great Battle, humans and Cathara had worked together to rebuild the shattered worlds of the Federation. The crystal cities that rose from the ruins were different from the old ones. They still sang with harmonic beauty, but now they also bristled with defensive systems that could stop any enemy from landing on the surface. The Cathara had learned to fight, but they had not lost their peaceful nature. Instead, they had found a balance between their desire for harmony and their need to protect innocent life. Young Cathara warriors trained alongside human marines, their crystalline forms moving with deadly grace through combat exercises. Dr. Maria Santos had established a research station on the Cathara homeworld, where human and alien scientists worked together to understand the Skarn technology they had captured. The bioships that had survived the battle were being studied carefully, their organic systems revealing secrets about the collective consciousness that controlled them. "Dr. Santos thinks she's close to a breakthrough," Jake told Velthara. "If we can figure out how the Skarn communicate across their fleet, we might be able to disrupt their collective consciousness permanently. That would save many lives across the galaxy," Velthara replied. "But Captain, I worry about what this war is doing to your people. When you first arrived, you fought to save strangers. Now you fight because you must. I fear we have taken away some of your innocence." Jake was quiet for a moment, thinking about the young man he had been before this war began. The human fleet had grown larger in the past 6 months, as Earth sent more ships and supplies to support the fight against the Skarn. But each battle took something from the men and women who fought it. "Maybe we've lost some innocence," he said finally. "But we've gained something too. We've learned that we're not alone in the galaxy. We've found friends who are worth fighting for. And we've proven that evil can be stopped if good people are willing to stand together." The communication crystal on Velthara's wrist began to glow, indicating an urgent message. She touched it gently and listened to the report from her scouts in the outer system. "Captain, we have visitors. A ship has just arrived requesting permission to land. It's not human or Kythera design." Jake and Velthara hurried to the landing platform where the alien vessel was setting down. The ship was sleek and silver, clearly built by an advanced civilization. As they watched, a ramp extended from the vessel and 3 beings walked out. The aliens were tall and thin with blue skin and large black eyes. Their movements were graceful, but cautious, like diplomats who were not sure of their welcome. The leader of the group stepped forward and spoke through a translation device. "I am Ambassador Zefkar of the Alterian Republic. We have come to speak with the humans in Kythera about forming an alliance against the Skarn Dominion." Jake exchanged glances with Velthara. This was the first time any other species had contacted them since the battle 6 months ago. "Welcome, Ambassador," Velthara said diplomatically. "We are honored by your visit, but may I ask why you have come now? When we sent our original distress call, no one answered." The alien ambassador looked uncomfortable. "High Coordinator, I must speak honestly. When your people first called for help, Our government believed the Skarn were too powerful to resist. We thought it would be safer to hide and hope they would not find us. And now? Jake asked. Now we know that the Skarn can be defeated. Your victory here has been reported across the galaxy. For the first time in decades, there is hope that the Dominion can be stopped. Over the next few hours, Ambassador Zefkar explained the situation in the wider galaxy. The news from other sectors was both encouraging and troubling. Word of the human victory had spread quickly, inspiring some species to resist Skarn attacks, instead of surrendering immediately. 3 different civilizations had successfully defended their worlds using tactics learned from studying the battle reports. But the Skarn were also adapting. They had begun attacking in larger groups and had developed new weapons designed specifically to counter human tactics. The collective consciousness was learning from its defeats. The Dominion has declared humanity and the Kythera to be priority targets, the ambassador explained. They are gathering their largest fleet ever assembled to return to this sector. Our intelligence suggests they will arrive within the next month. Jake felt his stomach drop. How many ships? Over 1,000 vessels, including 12 of their largest biostations. They intend to make an example of this system to discourage other species from resisting them. That evening, Jake called an emergency meeting of all human and Kythera leaders. The conference room in the rebuilt Crystal Palace was filled with officers, scientists, and diplomats from both species. The mood was tense as they discussed their options. We can't fight 1,000 ships with what we have here, said Captain Nina Cross. Even with the reinforcements from Earth, we'll have maybe 200 vessels at most. The Alterian Republic has offered to provide 50 ships, added Commander Ben Carter, but that's still not enough to match their numbers. Dr. Santos stood up from her seat. Actually, we might not need to match their numbers. My research team has made a breakthrough with the captured Skarn technology. We've figured out how their collective consciousness works. She activated a holographic display that showed the complex network of bio-neural connections that linked the Skarn fleet together. The collective consciousness isn't just shared thoughts. It's a physical network of living connections between their ships. If we can build a device that disrupts these connections, we can break up their coordination completely. Turn them from one large fleet into 1,000 individual ships that can't work together, Jake said, understanding immediately. Exactly. And individual Skarn drones aren't very intelligent. Without the collective to guide them, they'll be much easier to defeat. Velthara leaned forward, her crystal body glowing with excitement. How long will it take to build this device? With Kythera harmonic technology to amplify the signal, maybe 3 weeks. But we'll need to get it close to their main command ship to be effective. Jake smiled grimly. Then we'll get it close, just like last time. The next 3 weeks were the busiest in Kythera history. The crystal cities worked around the clock to build the consciousness disruption device, while human engineers installed new weapon systems on every available ship. The Alterian vessels arrived and immediately joined the preparation efforts. But the most important development was the arrival of ships from 12 different species that had decided to join the fight against the Skarn. The news of the human Kythera alliance had spread across the galaxy, inspiring other civilizations to overcome their fear and stand together. When the Skarn fleet finally arrived, they found themselves facing an alliance of 15 different species united in their determination to stop the Dominion's expansion. The battle that followed lasted for 3 days and became known across the galaxy as the Battle of Liberation. The consciousness disruption device worked perfectly. When Dr. Santos activated it from a stealth ship that had penetrated deep into the Skarn formation, the effect was immediate and devastating. The collective consciousness shattered like glass, leaving 1,000 individual bioships floating helplessly in space. Without their shared intelligence to guide them, the Skarn drones could barely function. Some ships simply shut down completely. Others began attacking each other, their damaged programming unable to distinguish between friend and enemy. The Allied fleet destroyed the Skarn vessels one by one, but they also captured many intact ships for study. Most importantly, they rescued thousands of beings from dozens of species who had been absorbed by the collective over the years. When the last Skarn ship was either destroyed or captured, A cheer went up across 15 different species that could be heard from one end of the system to the other.